The biggest risk that you can take right now is not taking any risks. Hello and welcome to Pillars of Wealth Creation, where we talk about creating financial success with a special focus on business and real estate. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. Now, let's get to it. Well, welcome back to Pillars of Wealth Creation. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. And I want to talk today about taking risks because I get into kind of these periods of time where I don't want to take a lot of risk. I got a lot of good things that I've done. Sometimes I think, man, should I just play it safe? Should I just kind of relax and allow what I've done to just bear its fruit? And I I always get out of that because for me, I want growth. I want to continue to make an impact and I want to do more, right? But at the same time, you know, I don't always take giant risks. Sometimes I take really big risks. And most of the time I take very calculated risks. Um, and I've got a family. I've got a couple kids. And so my risks look a lot different than they did before I had kids, before I had the family, but I still take risks. I still push on. So here's the thing is if you're going to want to become an entrepreneur, if you're going to want to really be financially independent, if you're going to want to make an impact beyond just your own simple life, you're going to have to take risks. The thing of it is, I feel like if you're not going to step out, if you're not going to push yourself to a higher level, that's the biggest risk. The biggest risk that you can take right now is not taking any risks. You see, the world as we know it looks so much different than it did 10, 20, 30 years ago. So what's it going to look like 10, 20, 30 years from now, 40 years from now? And if you're playing it safe today, you're trying not to take risks, what's that going to do for you? In my opinion, it's going to put you in a really bad position. The other, you know, many other reasons, right? So risks, of course, when we think risks, we think losing it all, right? We think the danger of what could happen, but I see not taking risks as the danger of, well, if you don't take risks, you get lazy. If you don't take risks, you get complacent. If you don't take risks, you truly become satisfied in how you've lived your life. See, I want to be able to look back at the end of the day and say I accomplished something. I don't want to be sitting there in heaven and saying and God going, here's a video of what your life could have been. This is how you could have lived if you would have taken some risks, if you would have lived life to the fullest extent. Here's what you could have done. Here's who you could have affected. Here's what you could have had. Here's how things would have went if you would have just done more. Right. And so for me, I want to, at the end of the day, not have those regrets, not look back and go, wow, I could have done all of that. I could have accomplished all of that. I could have affected all those people. Holy cow. I should have taken those risks. For me, risks help my confidence level a lot. I look at the risk of starting this podcast. I look at the risk of starting my conference. I look at the risk of getting out there in front of people and speaking. I look at the risks of buying real estate, of switching from flipping, which by the way was risky, switching from flipping to buying multifamily properties. completely switching my business model. Those are big risks, but those gave me so much more confidence. Those have continued to push me. And I think back of where I was, where I'm now, and I still have a lot of growth, right? I still want to continue to grow. I still want to continue to improve, but there's been a big change. And it opens your eyes that taking risks really opens your eyes. It shifts your paradigm so much. Had I not taken risks, right? I was a high school teacher. Had I not taken risk, I'd still be a high school teacher today or something else, but I wouldn't certainly be doing what I'm doing. And not that there's anything wrong with being a high school teacher, certainly. There's a lot of amazing teachers and you can have a great career doing that. It just wasn't the right fit for me. And I look at the life I've created at this point in time, and there's so much more that I want to continue to create, so much more that I want to continue to do. But without taking those risks, I wouldn't have had the growth that I've had. I wouldn't have been able to open my eyes, and I wouldn't have had those paradigm shifts. So many different paradigm shifts as I've taken and stepped outside of my comfort zone. I just remember first looking at buying that single family home and just sitting there at the closing table, just so nervous with that. And then looking at buying that first apartment building, a 13 unit apartment building, and thinking, wow, this is wild that I'm buying this big 13 unit apartment building. And then looking at the first big, truly big apartment building I purchased. And maybe that's even small at this point in time, but an 84 unit apartment building, looking at that. And then, now, even today, I took a risk about a year ago and I decided I'm going to buy senior assisted living. I had a friend that came up to me and asked me if I wanted to partner with him on a deal that he found. The numbers looked great. But, we're in the middle of COVID. And what's going on with senior assisted living in the middle of COVID? Well, shoot, I mean, these older people are dying. They're scared. Families are scared. And so people aren't living in assisted living nearly as much right now as they had been. The occupancy went from low 90s down into the high 70s in many cases. So, man, that's a big risk. But I decided, you know what? Let's step out. Let's take that risk. Let's purchase some assisted living. And we've continued to take the risk and continue to purchase these assisted living. We're seeing the results now start to become really, really powerful. And we're seeing the promise of the risks that we've taken and the paradigm that, shift that I've gone through, and realizing, uh, you know, because of that risk, the opportunity at hand, and truly just opening my eyes. Um, and so it happens so many times. And now every risk isn't going to work out 100%. Some of them are going to be failures, and that's okay. But through that failure, you're going to learn a lot of great lessons along the way, as long as you keep your eyes open, as long as you understand that failure is actually a teaching opportunity for you, right? You have to be aware of that. Anytime that you go through something that's a failure, you have to really look at, why did it fail? What could I have done differently? What lessons can I really take out of this, and how I'm going to apply it to my business and my life moving forward? Otherwise, that failure is just a failure. That's it. And I don't want failures to just be failures. They need to be lessons. They need to be, a college education for me. We pay a lot of money for those. You might lose a lot of money on your failure, so make sure it's an education for you. Um, you know, the other thing I think taking risks has done for me is it zaps a lot of fear. Um, you have maybe a lot of fear going into it, but you gain so much confidence and zap that fear as you continue to take more risks. And now, as I look at taking a risk, it's not so daunting to me because I can see the other side. I can see the potential and the results because I've taken those risks before. And I know and understand that as long as I'm calculating the risk, right? As long as I'm thinking about what could go right, but also what could go wrong, and is what could go right worth the risk, right, of what could go wrong? And do I have, what's my opportunity, right? I mean, if I'm not gonna go take a risk that I've got 75%, 95% failure. But I certainly will take a risk if I know that there's a good chance that if I do things right, I'm going to succeed. And so I'll certainly step out the box, but I'm not going to, go walk a tightrope around across the Grand Canyon. That's certainly a risk. That would really give me a lot of growth, right? That would boost my confidence if I could complete it. But chances are, for me, I can't tightrope, right? I'm going to fall and die. So that's a risk I just wouldn't take. But for me to go and transition from, single family duplexes, quads up to, 100 plus unit buildings, was that a risk I was willing to take? Absolutely. I essentially abandoned my one business, which was flipping, that was making me a pretty good income. And I went and started this multifamily business, syndication business. And it was making me nothing when I first started, but I abandoned that to take the risk to see the results that we're seeing today. It was worth it because I knew there was a chance of failure, certainly, but I also knew there was a good chance of success. And so for me, that was worth the risk. My wife recently, not recently now, it's been a year, or maybe more than a year. She quit her job, right? That was a risk we took as a family. Obviously it's her job, so she took the big risk, but I took a risk too, and our family took a risk by my wife quitting her job, saying, we can do this without your job. And the results have been phenomenal, right? The results have been amazing. This was right during COVID. COVID could have done a lot of damage to my business, but we were willing to take that risk. We're willing to step outside and grow and gain that confidence. Here's the other thing that risk, I think, helps, is it helps the encourage creativity. You have to, if you're going to take a risk, you want to say, at least I do, when I take a risk, I'm going to make this a success. Like, I'm going to set out and do this. And so I have a determination to do it. I have a determination to solve problems, to be creative, to really think outside the box if I need to. I have the determination to make sure this is going to go my way. And I'm going to figure out legally, morally, ethically how I'm going to make this work. And it's allowed a lot of times for me to be creative. I just set up a deal, and I've done this actually before, but I set up a deal to where the seller is in reinvesting their proceeds back into the property as a shareholder. What's that allow? That allows me to raise less money. Their shares were an A share, a preferred share. They got a different split than everybody else. It allowed me to take a little bit of risk off the table, right? And it allowed me to get the deal done and create excellent returns for my investors to boot. So being creative to be able to get the deal done for a specific price, in order to make it work. We're trying it all the time. We always, when we're negotiating on deals, have creative options. We're trying to figure out how can we get this deal done at the price they want. And it's a competitive market out there. So we have to be smart about how we how we go about it. But there's so many more reasons that, you can think about taking risks. But I think for me, the most important part about it is that opportunities out there, making progress is available for you, but you're never going to actually take advantage of that opportunity. You're never going to be successful without taking risks. And again, risks are calculated. Risks are well thought out. Risks aren't just, we're going to jump off a cliff and hope that we land in the river, right? And that it's deep enough for us not to die. Risks are calculated. But go out there and stretch your mind, stretch your body. I'm always pushing my kids to take some risks. I mean, we do things all the time. They jump into deep water, deep, but they jump from high heights, and that's risky for them. At least it feels like it, because they've never done it before. We are big downhill skiers. Now they're really good at it, but before, I would push them. Before they felt comfortable, I'd push them to go down that blue, that black, that really crazy mogul run, and they felt uncomfortable with it, but we pushed them to do it. We go on long hikes. They're comfortable going on a certain amount of hike, but we push them farther, push them to the next level. We try to do things all the time that stretch their mind to understand that it's okay to go beyond what you're comfortable with. It's okay, because we know it's going to give them that confidence, that growth, right? It's going to quell their fear. And so we want to be able to push to that next level. And I truly believe that if you want to be fully satisfied in life, you've got to take those risks. You've got to step out. You've got to be able to take good calculated risks, but you've got to be able to take risks in order to achieve greatness. There's nothing else. All right. So that's all for today. I am signing out. You have a fantastic rest of the day, and make every day a Saturday. Hey, thanks so much for listening. I appreciate you being a loyal listener. I would love to have you go on to our Facebook page and subscribe, give us a thumbs up, go on to iTunes or wherever you listen and give us a rating and review. Don't forget to subscribe. Your rating and review just helps us push this out to more and more people and continue to grow our audience and hopefully positively affect a ton of people out there that really need this and want this. So the other thing I've got for you is a free ebook on my website. So go on to venturedproperties.com, and download our free ebook on real estate and on syndication. And I've got some data points in there, some really good stuff for you. So I'd love to have you take a look at that. It's free. I'm not expecting anything from it. And also, look, if you want some help in multifamily, want some help learning, growing, getting your business off the ground, I would love to talk to you about what it would look like to work with me potentially and see if that's a good fit. So you can go to coachwithdex.com and check that out, and we can definitely have a call. Thanks a lot for listening. You make it a fantastic rest of the day. I'll catch you on the next episode.